You're being let go, effective immediately, Brenda declared, her smile sharp, like a perfectly honed blade. We're restructuring the team, and honestly, your unique contributions just aren't aligned with our new strategic direction. No hard feelings, Sarah. These decisions are purely business. Then came the sting, that infuriating phrase. Your talents are easily replaceable. The conference room fell silent. The only sound, the distant hum of the AC and the faint clinking of a mug in the hallway. On Zoom, 15 faces stared back, frozen, unsure whether to avert their gaze or pretend to check their screens. My heart didn't race. Instead, it felt as though it had curled into a defensive ball, stopping entirely, just to prevent me from lashing out across the polished wood table. I remained silent. No tears, no arguments, no desperate pleas about my 5 years of dedication, or the countless nights I spent rebuilding our entire data infrastructure after their star developer left. I didn't remind them that I had mentored half of this very team, all while earning less than the intern who once asked if Java was a type of coffee. I simply nodded once, acknowledged their words, then rose, straightened my old, comfortable sweater, and began gathering my belongings: laptop, charger, notebook. I left the coffee mug. It had a cheesy motivational quote, and it felt like a cruel joke now. No one moved, not even Mark, who had once praised me as the cornerstone of our entire reporting system. They just watched, eyes darting like observers anticipating another shockwave. Brenda, meanwhile, maintained her pleased expression, as cold and unfeeling as a walk-in freezer. As I walked out, she added with a slight smirk, "Just leave your badge at the front desk, and we'll deactivate your access by end of day. That would be ideal." I let it clatter onto the counter as I passed, the sound echoing louder than her entire dismissal. In the elevator, the silence was different, the kind that settles in after a significant impact. I wasn't weeping. I wasn't even angry yet. I was something worse. I was recalling how I'd been excluded from salary reviews last quarter due to my seniority level. How Brenda once labeled me a steady hand while promoting a male colleague who regularly asked me to explain basic coding concepts. Most vividly, I remembered the password, one I hadn't used in months, yet it lived in my memory like an ingrained reflex. Once home, I didn't reach for a drink. I didn't text friends or fall into a rabbit hole of online job postings. Instead, I powered on my personal laptop, silenced my phone, and opened a browser. One tab for email, another a blank document, and the third, the administrator login for PayScale Pro. Username, redacted. Password, enter. The dashboard appeared smooth and clean, like a key turning in a long-forgotten lock. Brenda had no idea. None of them did. They thought they were simply letting go of another analyst. What they actually did was infuriate the architect of their downfall. PayScale Pro wasn't assembled overnight. It was conceived at 3 a.m. in a small apartment that perpetually smelled of stale coffee and profound existential weariness. Lines of code scribbled on napkins, database queries jotted in notebooks, makeshift solutions cobbled together on an ancient computer that groaned like a tired machine. No funding, no co-founder, no glitzy startup incubator. Just me, endless energy drinks, and a simmering resentment over how every company I'd ever worked for had been dishonest about compensation. So, I built the remedy. Not a flashy mobile app, not some trendy venture capital-backed enterprise with executives in designer casual wear, but a lean, brutally effective platform where individuals could anonymously share their true earnings. Job title, years of experience, equity, bonuses, benefits, all the hidden details HR departments conveniently omit. I coded every line myself. I developed the automated system that extracted salary ranges from job advertisements. I implemented the robust encryption layer. I even engineered the moderation AI, trained on every corporate PR statement I could find. just so it could identify and filter out misleading information in multiple languages. And I never revealed my identity. Even the moderators believed the administrator was a collective entity, a myth. They called it the PayScale Pro Ghost, assuming it was a rogue tech enthusiast, a disgruntled former employee, or even a union. It was none of those. It was me, Sarah, the easily replaceable girl who apparently wasn't worth a mid-year bonus. The admin dashboard glowed on my screen like a command center. Dark background, white text, minimalist, secure, powerful. 5 million active users, 30,000 salary submissions last week. I watched the analytics pulse like a living thing. Then I clicked on the Companies tab, entered the name of my now former employer. There it was, their profile. Dozens of positions listed, salary ranges, bonus information, equity data, hundreds of anonymous reviews from employees over the years. Some positive, some scathing, all unfiltered. I moved my cursor over the status drop-down. The options: active, under review, blacklisted. I didn't hesitate. I didn't muse. I didn't even blink. Click. Blacklisted. A single confirmation prompt appeared. Are you certain you wish to blacklist this employer from PayScale Pro? This action will render all their data invisible to users. Recruiters and job seekers will no longer be able to access compensation insights, negotiation benchmarks, or position reviews. Yes. The screen refreshed. Their company name turned gray. Their reviews and salary data collapsed like scaffolding removed from a building. Externally, it would appear as though they had simply vanished, like a ghost town, a black hole where a company once stood. They would still exist in the code, of course, dormant, untouched. I didn't delete anything. I'm not malicious. But no recruiter using PayScale Pro would be able to verify a single detail about them. No job seeker could compare offers, and no aspiring intern would see what their peers earned within those walls. To the public, it was as if the company had disappeared from the wage map. I leaned back in my chair. The silence in my apartment was profound. Not heavy, not loud, just absolute. No team notifications, no virtual meetings, no Brenda smirking through a webcam while feigning empathy. Just me, my code, and a company slowly realizing its very foundation had been subtly eroded. They had dismissed me as if I were nothing, but now they would have to operate as if they were nothing. 3 days later, the emails began to pile up. Hi, Brenda. Candidate for back-end role 2 never responded after the second interview. Another lost prospect. Our front-end lead signed the offer, then went completely silent. I just had a promising candidate decline our offer, citing a lack of salary transparency. Any idea what she meant? Brenda's replies were, as always, brief, sharp, oozing false confidence. Maintain course. We have a strong brand. It's likely just minor interference. But it wasn't minor interference. It was a clear pattern, and it was escalating. By Thursday, 3 offers had been withdrawn by applicants. One even included a polite thank you note that, had Brenda actually read beyond the superficial pleasantries, was essentially a subtle dismissal in elegant script. I appreciate the opportunity, but after discussing with several current and former employees, I've decided to pursue a role with greater clarity around compensation and growth. I wish you the best in your hiring efforts. Translation. I researched you. I saw the void where your integrity should be. I'm opting out. Within the company's internal messaging system, recruiters were unraveling. One innocently inquired if PayScale Pro was undergoing maintenance, as they could no longer retrieve salary comparisons. Another swore they were seeing cached pages that wouldn't load. Someone even jokingly suggested they'd been shadow banned. Brenda responded with a single sentence. It's probably a minor technical issue. Let's revisit this next week. A technical issue. She dismissed it as if it were a loose wire or an expired browser cookie, as if 5 million users hadn't just been cut off from seeing her company's compensation data, as if someone hadn't slammed a dark curtain over their little glass recruiting booth. I observed it all from my laptop, sipping reheated coffee and scrolling through the company's anonymous forum. A few anonymous posts began to appear. Has anyone else noticed they're gone from PayScale Pro? Thought it was just me. I was checking salaries last night, and their page is a 404 error. Maybe they got flagged for unethical practices. I heard a recruiter tried to lowball my friend by $30,000. I didn't post anything. Not yet. I just observed, letting the wildfire ignite itself. But the most satisfying part, the true reward, was watching Brenda maintain her icy composure as the ground softened beneath her. In every team meeting, she repeated the same mantra. The market is unpredictable. This is a temporary phase. We simply need to intensify our outreach and refine our brand image. Outreach? They could have organized a parade with clowns juggling resumes and still wouldn't secure a single hire. Because no matter how appealing the job posting, no matter how many unlimited PTO bullet points they crammed into the description, candidates were disengaging faster than an inexpensive air conditioner in a heat wave. And all the while, I remained silent. No boasting, no alternate accounts yet, no smug social media posts, just silence, bitterness, and a quiet satisfaction dancing together in my chest. You see, it wasn't just about retribution. Not truly. It was about watching them experience the very same confusion they had once inflicted upon me. The same disorienting days I endured when I was overlooked for raises, when Brenda would postpone discussions about promotions until I forgot I'd even inquired, when HR smiled while taking credit for projects I built and assigning them to men who praised me for being detail-oriented as if it were a compliment, not a consolation prize. Now they were the ones being left behind. Now they were the ones asking questions without answers, and it was only the beginning. It started with a spreadsheet. Nothing flashy, just a clean, crisp Excel file titled Engineer Compensation Q3, Internal Use Only, XLSX. I'd saved it 2 years prior when I was asked to organize the analytics folder for a director's off-site presentation. I remembered opening it and feeling my face flush. 2 columns, side by side. Engineer name, base salary. Then further down, bonus eligibility, stock options, level. And without even trying, the numbers spoke louder than any memo ever could. Male colleagues hired straight out of boot camp were earning 12 to 18% more than women with 3 to 5 years of experience. The sole female team lead was making less than the guy who used to condescendingly call her code mommy in meetings. I saved it then, telling myself it was for accountability. Perhaps one day I'd address it through proper channels, file a concern, have a mature discussion. You know, the way they indoctrinate you to believe HR is a neutral party and not merely a corporate defense mechanism. Now it was a weapon. I anonymized names, removed all personally identifiable information, scrubbed my own data, and routed it through 3 virtual private networks. Then, with the precision of a surgeon and the grim satisfaction of an avenger, I timed the upload. Sunday night, 11:43 p.m., prime late-night scrolling hours. I posted it in a private messaging group for tech salary transparency. Invite only, but heavily monitored by journalists and disillusioned engineers. The caption: Q3 2022 comp snapshot from a mid-sized company that rhymes with top sector. Looks like performance-based pay if your performance includes being named Chad. It didn't take long. By morning, it had leaked into the main salary transparency online forum. One user connected the data to top sector's old job listings. Another highlighted the exact dollar amount of discrepancy between 2 identical job titles. A former employee weighed in. Can confirm. Asked for a raise, was told, we don't negotiate off-cycle. My male peer received an unscheduled bump the same month. Then came the second drop. This time, it was a PDF, an old offer letter for a DevOps hire who received a $1,150 sign-on bonus and an extra week of vacation due to exceptional potential. I had the female candidate's letter too. Same role, same title, no bonus. The only difference? Her resume had superior credentials. I released that one Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of a live internal company presentation Brenda was conducting on the company's internal culture. Her face on camera, attempting to explain how we value equity not just in words, but in our structure. While the internal chat lit up with notifications and private message groups buzzed like a disturbed beehive, a senior engineer posted in the general channel, "Can someone explain why comp transparency is a threat and not a value?" Someone else replied with just a popcorn emoji. By Wednesday, a team lead resigned, not quietly, but publicly, in an all-hands meeting, camera on, voice steady. "I cannot ask people to trust a company that treats pay like a game of chance," she stated, especially when the rules clearly change based on who you are. Then she exited the video call, just poof, leaving Brenda blinking as if someone had pulled the plug. The silence afterward was deafening. Recruiting came to a standstill. Candidates began demanding specific pay band data before even agreeing to a phone screen. One recruiter inquired if they could vaguely pitch roles without mentioning the company name. Brenda was spiraling. She called an emergency meeting with legal and IT, demanding to know if they had been hacked, if there was a breach. When it finally examined their internal file sharing, they hadn't been. There was no hack, no breach, just truth. Truth extracted from forgotten folders, polished until it gleamed, and dropped into the world like coins striking a drum. She couldn't trace it. She couldn't contain it. She couldn't even determine who was leaking what, because the leaks weren't all from me. Other employees, current and former, started digging too. Quiet emails, archived offer letters, screenshots of private conversations, things that had once made people roll their eyes and say, "Don't cause trouble." Well, the boat was swaying now, and Brenda, she was standing right at the edge. By Friday morning, Brenda wasn't just spiraling. She was anticipating collapse. The atmosphere inside that office must have been thick with corporate anxiety and unsent resignation drafts. Rumor had it she canceled all candidate calls for the week and demanded full access to internal document permissions, the ghost of a visionary leader possessed by a security guard. She was summoned to her superior's office twice before 10 o'clock a.m., and by lunch, she had already accused 2 interns of leaking proprietary data to online communities. She wasn't there, obviously, but people talk, especially when fear sets in. She locked down shared drives, froze several team leads out of their collaboration access, and ordered one of the IT administrators to conduct a forensic sweep of outbound traffic logs for the past 90 days. When told it would take weeks, she informed them they had 2 days, or she'd reorganize their entire department. That's when the internal communication channels started to go silent. Not because people weren't communicating, but because they weren't communicating publicly anymore. Private group chats formed. Some people switched to encrypted messaging apps. A few even deleted company profiles altogether and began ignoring HR requests as if they were haunted voicemails from a forgotten past. And then, quietly, beautifully, someone broke. A junior HR staffer named Elise, the one who used to restock the snack bar and distribute wellness bulletins as if they held genuine meaning, she resigned. She simply left. No 2-week notice, no exit interview, just a resignation email with the subject line, "Accountability isn't optional." Inside, one sentence. "If this place burns down, don't assume everyone inside tried to extinguish the fire." Hours later, I received a direct message with her email. No name, no emoji, just the message. "We all witnessed what she did to you. Thank you." I stared at it for a while, not with triumph, not with smug satisfaction, but with a strange, profound ache in my chest, as if I'd been holding my breath for 2 years and someone had finally whispered, "You weren't imagining things." It affected me more deeply than any fantasy of revenge ever could. I never thought anyone in that building even noticed. I assumed they had all succumbed to the corporate narrative and continued blindly while I was escorted out. But apparently, while Brenda was meticulously constructing her fragile empire of corporate falsehoods, some people were quietly sketching escape plans. The humorous part is, I didn't require allies, not initially. But now they were appearing, drawn like moths to a flame of truth. One colleague forwarded me a meeting agenda from an executive retreat where Brenda proposed restricting salary access to senior HR only to prevent transparency leaks. Another uploaded an audio recording of a meeting where a manager told a female engineer to stop comparing compensation. It creates resentment. A third shared a screenshot of an internal document labeled Narrative Control Plan, with bullet points like reinforce culture wins, downplay online sentiment, and identify employees who engage in toxic transparency. They weren't attempting to fix the breach. They were trying to control the narrative of a flood. And every person who sent me something, every quiet supporter, every whistleblower, every exhausted developer who had spent 3 years believing they were alone, they all shared the same sentiment. Weariness mingled with clarity. Not rage, not even rebellion. Just people finally done pretending the house wasn't engulfed in flames while the CEO roasted marshmallows in the boardroom. And Brenda? She couldn't stop it. She believed if she could just locate the single informant, she could plug the hole. But she was pursuing phantoms in a house with countless open windows. Every door she slammed shut simply channeled more air into the conflagration. She didn't know who I was, but worse, she didn't realize I wasn't the only one. They attempted to relist on Monday. Some overwhelmed middle manager in HR must have logged into PayScale Pro like a person navigating a dense fog, dragging a new company profile template behind him. New branding, a fresh tagline, a desperate little bullet point that read, "Committed to pay transparency and equity." I nearly choked on my coffee. They believed they could outmaneuver the ghost with a rebrand and a verification badge. Adorable. The moment that request hit the back end, my small script intercepted it. Line 47, ASEN if company ID equals top sector, then status equals pending. Delay 99 sun 999 minutes. Elegant. Infinite. Infuriating. Every time they tried to submit, the dashboard would politely respond, "Request pending. Please allow up to 72 hours for approval." And every 72 hours, the loop reset. No errors, no red flags, just perpetual limbo. They submitted again and again, 4 attempts in a week, each with slightly more desperate adjustments. They even removed the words top sector once and tried using TS Tech solutions. Denied. The system still recognized their employer ID and bounced it right back into the void. Meanwhile, a subtle campaign ignited within the consulting circuit. It turned out they had hired a boutique compliance agency from Austin, something with a sterile name like Integrity Solutions or Safe Harbor Audits, to audit their digital footprint and restore public trust. Translation: please fix this mess we don't comprehend, without revealing how thoroughly we've damaged it. The consultants probed PayScale Pro's public API, examined headers, ran diagnostic tools like tech exorcists fumbling through sacred texts. I monitored the log pings in real time, sipping sparkling water as if I were courtside at a brutal sport. Then, one of them, a shrewd senior engineer named Lewis, judging by the console fingerprint, finally accessed the sandbox environment and initiated a listing protocol. He observed what others hadn't. Not a glitch, not a malfunction, but a solid wall. Clean, deliberate, and personally coded by someone with full administrator access. He ran a test submission through a fake employer ID. It worked perfectly. No delay, no timeout, just clear sailing. Then he altered one variable, entered top sector's ID again. The loop tried to bypass it. Denied. He attempted to escalate to a moderator-level override. Denied. He even tried submitting under a new domain, Top Sector Jobs, with a brand new IP address. Blocked in under 0.03 seconds. That's when their internal communication system lit up. Lewis says this isn't a systems issue. What do you mean? He says someone at PayScale Pro intentionally blocked our access from the top level. Like a developer? No, like the developer. Brenda must have felt the ground shift beneath her. She'd spent weeks portraying the entire situation as a glitch, some rogue bug, a permissions hiccup, perhaps even a disgruntled intern who pressed the wrong button. Now the consultants were informing her there was no rogue. This was built in, embedded in the code like a hidden venom. They couldn't bypass it. They couldn't tunnel under it. They couldn't charm their way around it with policy revisions and polished public relations statements. There was no email to contact, no generic support@payscalepro.com that would forward to an intern who would relay her desperate plea. There was just the wall, the digital equivalent of a deadbolt welded shut from the other side, with no key and no locksmith. And I watched it all from my screen. One tab open to my admin console, another open to their internal chat leak, because, yes, someone very helpful was now forwarding screenshots. A third tab open to the anonymous forum where someone had just posted, "So if PayScale Pro isn't glitching, who the heck did Top Sector upset?" The tide had turned. They no longer believed it was an accident. Now they feared it was personal. They were right. The professional networking message landed in my inbox on a Thursday morning. No subject line fluff, no HR jargon, just a direct message from a profile so polished it practically radiated success. Robert H. Caldwell, director at Top Sector, former COO of 3 Fortune 500 companies, current advisor to half the Valley's aspiring public companies. His profile banner was a city skyline at dawn, the kind of photo executives use to appear inspirational but accidentally just remind you of how solitary glass towers can be. The message was concise. "Sarah, I believe we may have crossed paths before. I'm reaching out not as a representative of Top Sector, but as someone curious, impressed. If you're open to a conversation, there's a quiet corner table at Grand Central Cafe this time of day. My treat. R. No threats, no demands, no legal bluster." He knew. Not suspected, knew. I didn't reply for a day, letting the invitation linger. Then, out of curiosity, and perhaps a touch of defiance, I accepted. I chose the time, wore something deliberately unremarkable, and walked into that cafe as if I were just another remote worker there for overpriced pastries and passable coffee. Robert was already seated, navy blazer, no tie, reading something on his tablet with the calm detachment of a man who had witnessed entire companies crumble in silence. He stood as I approached. "Sarah," he said, extending a hand. "Are you always this dramatic?" I asked. He smiled. Not fake, not nervous, but genuinely, the kind of laugh you only hear from someone whose suspicion has finally been confirmed and finds it more impressive than threatening. "I always suspected it wasn't some prodigy fresh out of college," he said. The elegance of that blacklist loop, that was a force, not just a feature. I let the silence hang. He studied me, elbows on the table. "I'm not here to ask you to reverse it. Frankly, it's already too late for that. Brenda is on her way out. The brand is suffering, candidates are wary, and investors are sensing trouble. But I must admit, what you accomplished? That was clean, precise, like a surgeon or a skilled markswoman." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Both," he said, "but mostly the first." He paused, then leaned forward slightly. "I came here with a question," he said. "What if you did this professionally?" I blinked. "I don't mean sabotage," he clarified. "I mean consulting, auditing compensation data, identifying inequality before it becomes systemic, helping companies prevent this kind of public implosion." Perhaps even educating HR departments that non-disclosure agreements are not a substitute for ethical practices. He slid a business card across the table. No corporate branding, just his name and a direct email, a private one. "I don't expect an answer today," he said. "Honestly, I don't even expect a yes. But I've been in this industry a long time, Sarah. And every decade or so, someone emerges who doesn't just play the game. They redefine the rules. You just redefined the rules." I stared at the card. It felt heavier than it looked. "You think I want to help companies like yours?" I asked. "No," he said. "I think you want to ensure no one else is treated the way you were." He stood up, left a crisp $20 bill on the table for the coffee he hadn't finished, and nodded once. "Whether you say yes or not," he said, "you've already triumphed. The only question now is what kind of victory you desire." He departed. I remained there for a while longer, watching the steam rise from my cup, his card a tangible presence in my palm. I hadn't answered, but for the first time, the idea of emerging from the shadows didn't feel like capitulation. It felt like choice. Brenda was terminated on a Tuesday. Not even a press release, just a cold internal memo with the subject line "Leadership Transition and Organizational Realignment." 2 paragraphs, 0 warmth. Effective immediately. Brenda A. will be stepping down from her role as VP of People Operations. We thank her for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Translation: she's gone. We're erasing her from our records. The memo was sent at 8:03 a.m. By 8:12, her calendar had been cleared. By 8:17, a recruiter posted a vague social media update about new beginnings. By 8:29, someone had already replaced her nameplate on the glass office with Interim HR Lead, TBA. No farewell email, no social media post, thanking her amazing team. Just quiet footsteps and the slow, bitter thud of her professional reputation being filed away. I imagined she sat at her desk for a while, perhaps still clinging to the idea that this was temporary, that she'd secure a senior leadership role at a startup desperate enough to overlook the repercussions. Maybe she was scrolling through job boards that morning, convincing herself she had options. Then the blog post went live at exactly 9 a.m. I published it under my real name for the very first time. Title: HR Can't Hide Behind Secrecy Forever. It began with a simple premise: transparency is not a favor. It's not a perk. It's the bare minimum. I didn't explicitly name top sector. I didn't need to. The story was conveyed through patterns: how companies exploit confidentiality clauses to suppress fair compensation discussions, how culture is often weaponized to emotionally manipulate individuals, how loyalty is extracted but never reciprocated. And then I laid it bare. I was told my skills were easily replaceable, so I built a platform used by millions. I was dismissed without ceremony, so I pulled back the curtain on the stage they built on inequity. You can't erase what people remember. You can't fire the truth. The footer: Sarah Holt, creator of PayScale Pro. For years, PayScale Pro was faceless, intentionally so. It empowered the data. But now the face mattered. Now people needed to see who had been behind the curtain all along. It trended in less than 20 minutes. Professional networking sites exploded. Online forums highlighted the post. Social media users screenshotted it and transformed it into a rallying cry. Direct messages poured in, hundreds of them. Engineers, HR professionals, journalists, some sharing their own stories, others simply saying thank you, as if I had deciphered a code they had been trying to write for a decade. And somewhere, in a corner office with the blinds drawn too tightly and the fluorescent lights flickering just incorrectly, Brenda read it. I know she did because someone from her department forwarded me a screenshot. Her standing over a half-empty desk, a cardboard box half full, an old mug, stress balls, a framed photo of her dog, and on her monitor, the blog post. My face staring back from the author bio. Not smug, not vengeful, just real. The woman she had dismissed in a meeting like an afterthought had just stepped onto a global stage and taken the microphone directly from her hand. I hope she read every line. I hope she saw the comment section illuminating with undeniable truths she could no longer suppress. I hope she finally understood that HR is not immune to accountability simply because they control the exit paperwork. And me? I closed the laptop slowly, the kind of closure you experience when you know there's no longer any need to hide. Not because it's safe, but because you are finally prepared to be seen. No aliases, no alternate accounts, no more waiting. Just my name, my words, and the profound silence that followed when the last mask dropped. You are the true stars of the corporate world. Thank you for listening. The story of Sarah reminds us that even when faced with injustice and feeling dismissed, our unique skills and determination can lead to unexpected paths of empowerment. It highlights the importance of transparency, especially in the workplace, and shows how truth, once revealed, has the power to create significant change. Our individual voices, when united, can challenge established norms and foster a more equitable environment for everyone. Never underestimate your own worth or the impact you can have by standing up for what's right.